Good afternoon. My name's John. This is my wife, Jennifer. We wanted to take a few moments to share some information with you about the upcoming bond election for Gilmer ISD and the consideration of the construction of a new high school and a new career and technology building. There was an ad in the Gilmer Mirror this past Thursday. Some pretty good information, some not so good, and we thought we would take a moment just to address a couple of the items that were listed in there and hopefully offer some clarification if you have any questions or if there's anything that you're unclear on. Hopefully you'll find this informative. Maybe not. To start, the very first item lists the fact that Gilmer currently has about $20 million in debt. That for the most part is true. I think the number is a little closer to $18 million. That debt goes back to the construction of the new elementary school that the children are currently housed in and some other across campus renovations that were done at that time. There's an argument being pressed now that we should wait and pay that debt off before considering the construction of a new high school. Good point. Certainly you could make the argument. I think the problem is that we're, in making that argument, we're failing to address the fact that Gilmer ISD has some needs right now at the high school campus, and we need to address those as well. It's unfortunate that we can't pay that debt off, but like many households, most families aren't able to write a check for their home or their new car or sending their children to college. We have opportunities where we have to borrow money, and I say that as an opportunity because if we didn't have that opportunity, many of us wouldn't be able to send our children to college or purchase an automobile for them. And so this is a great opportunity, great time. The interest rates are at 40 or 50 year lows. And so the cost of the money is relatively inexpensive. We don't know what the future holds. Maybe in 15 years when we get to that point, the construction cost, rather than being $35 million, it's $45 million because of the interest rate. And so
we would essentially have the same school that we want now, but at a higher price.
And let me make this one point, Jennifer, and then I'll let you discuss the next item. It's not a matter of just not doing anything. Gilmer High School has some needs, some pressing needs that are going to have to be addressed right now in some form or fashion. And so it's not like we're choosing between doing nothing or just waiting 15 years and then address the high school. The high school is going to have to be addressed prior to the passing of that time. And so the other consideration is renovation, some rough numbers as far as renovation costs, anywhere from 10 to 12 to $14 million. The committee that was selected to consider the needs of the high school decided for on three separate occasions when we've had the last two bonds that the need was for a new high school. And so the district has not necessarily spent an inordinate amount of time trying to really narrow down what the renovation cost would be. And so that's a broad range. And then the other consideration is the fact that because those renovations are so extensive, school goes on for 9-10 months every year. And so when school lets out the 1st of June, you really only have about a 10-week period of time where those renovations can occur. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, for all those to occur within one summer 10-week period. And so likely they would have to be phased in over a 2 or 3 year period. And so we have children going to school there now that, we're going to have to, they won't get the benefit of the new high school. And it's just, I don't know, I would just hate to think that Gilmer was going to try to renovate the high school over a 2 or 3 year period. And then when they finished that, still didn't have what we wanted.
Right. We still didn't have what we wanted. The next part is the current bond proposal is $35.2 million. That's the cost that the estimate for the building. It wouldn't be above and beyond that. That would be the top amount. The elementary, when that bond passed, came in under the estimated amount, and the tax dollar that was estimated to be passed on to the taxpayers was under that as well. So what you would get with that 35.2 if the bond passed is a high school and a career and technology building. We would, the current high school, we're 100 kids over capacity. There's been multiple renovations and additions added, which has caused us to have multiple entry and exit points to the school. So we're unable to secure the campus like we are able to do at the other campuses, at the elementary, at the junior high, and at the intermediate. You have to be buzzed in to get into that school. You're not going to get past a camera and somebody that's physically allowing you to come in, and then you're going to have to get clearance at the office. We want that for our high school, but because kids have to flow from building to building, we simply cannot do that without making it look like a prison, I suppose. Kids have to cross the street to go to classes over in the Career and Technology building. We want to get everything on the main campus, and you can go to our website to see like a virtual image or an artist's sketch of what it may look like. But essentially, that's what the 35.2 would be offering. And as he really talked about, that same school, 35.2 right now, what could it be 15 years, 20 years down the road? Maybe it'd be 42 million for the exact same school. And we've also put money into the current high school that's 68 years old to just get us 15, 20, 25 years down the road. So these are considerations. They're not taken lightly. The committees that looked at this knew that 2 previous bonds had failed, and still thought in good conscience the best thing that we can return with to the voters is a construction of a new high school rather than pouring good money after, the bad. So
the third item is the fact that total ISD debt, if the bond passes, is, and the number given here in the ad is $73 million. That's a scary number, but keep in mind that's a little bit of in my view, it's meant to mislead. When we consider the purchase of a home or an automobile, we typically don't add the interest that we're going to pay over the life of the loan to the purchase price and consider it from that standpoint. And so if I were going to purchase a $150,000 house and I'm going to pay it out over 30 years and it's going to cost me $70,000 in interest, I wouldn't tell my buddy that I spent $220,000 on a house. I would tell him I bought the house for $150,000. And so that's the same here. Gilmer ISD, just like most families, doesn't have the ability to write a check for a new $35 million high school and career and technology building. Just like families, they have to borrow the money, and just like families, they pay interest on those loans. It's a blessing that we have an opportunity to borrow the money as opposed to waiting. If the idea was that we were going to pay cash, I don't know that we would ever build anything. The next item is...
Hang on, let me come back to this.
Sorry.
So on that point, the $73 million, it's really... It's just a scare tactic, I believe. I mean, it is a valid figure in some ways, but what are you going to do with that figure? I mean, it's just too large for any of us to really put our head around. And but really, what matters is, what is it going to cost you per month? What is it going to cost you annually? And each voter has to decide. They have to look at the cost of the school, what we'd be getting. And what it's going to cost. So this is something that we have. And again, this is available on our Facebook page. It's available on our website. You can find the value of your home. Deduct the, if you have a homestead exemption, deduct that out and follow it over. So for, a $100,000 home in Gilmer ISD, after a $25,000 exemption, the annual tax increase is $183. That's $15.26 a month. And that's the most it would be. It could come in under that. It could be $12 a month. So don't be misled by those that may be telling you it's going to cost you thousands of dollars, annually, or, $100 more per month. Get the facts. look up your home, look up the value of your property, and find out exactly what it is, and make that decision for yourself.
The next item we want to address is the property tax rate. Again, Jennifer mentioned on the Kids First website, there's some good information. You all won't be able to see this, but this is a chart that shows districts with comparable enrollment as Gilmer in our area. So some of the schools that are listed on here: Van ISD, Gladewater, Spring Hill, Bullard, Center, Carthage, Henderson, Pittsburgh, and then Gilmer. And Gilmer's over here, right here. They currently have the lowest school tax rate of any of these districts. And so when you consider the ad mentions the fact that the property tax rate is going up 20%, it's important to keep in mind that's the school tax rate. That's not your tax rate as a whole. In other words, you pay county tax in addition to school tax and city tax. Your entire tax rate is not increasing 20%. Your school tax rate is increasing approximately 20%. Depending on the construction cost, it could come in below that. And so what the district has proposed, assuming that happens, Gilmer would end up right in the middle of the other districts that I mentioned as far as tax rate. So even with the 20%, approximate 20% increase needed to construct a new high school, Gilmer's tax rate would still fall somewhere in the middle.
So it's already a low rate.
It was a low rate. It has been a low rate. It hasn't changed very much, if at all. About 3%, I think, over the last 5 or 6 years.
Even with construction of a new elementary, we're still sitting way down there at the bottom on that graph. So the next one.
The next item mentions the fact that Gilmer has a current year deficit, or as of 2017. A couple of factors influence that. I think it's important, too, to keep in mind that just like our households, we have budgets at our home or for our homes. Cities have budgets, counties have budgets, businesses have budgets, and Gilmer ISD has a budget. And so a budget is it's an estimation, it's an approximation. And so there's going to be months where you may be a little bit in the black and months where you're a little bit in the red. Hopefully that we have strong leadership and guidance, and they're helping navigate those times where maybe there is a little bit of a deficit. So the ad $970,000 deficit for 2018. There's a couple of factors that really affected that. One is that the particular year in question, the kindergarten enrollment was about 40 or 50 children, I think, less than what had been anticipated, and so that affected the amount of state revenue that Gilmer received.
The ADA.
And then the other thing was property tax collections were down a little bit for that particular year. We're anticipating, this district is anticipating recovering from that and replacing that in the fund balance in the year to come. I think it's important to note, too, that Gilmer passed a balanced budget for the 2018 school year. And as I mentioned, they're anticipating about $700,000 to $800,000 being added to the fund balance, or an excess of. And so a $900,000 deficit that's mentioned here certainly should not reflect negatively on the district. The district has, for the last 16 years, a superior financial rating by the TEA. And if that were not the case, then maybe that would be cause for concern. But under these circumstances, I don't think so. The next item, Jennifer.
The Gilmer High School roof is not leaking. They claim that Mr. Albritton said this. Where is that? Right there. You want to address that? You want me to?
Well, the only consensus that we could come to was that evidently it wasn't raining the night that they held that meeting.
Right.
I mean, that's
and it wasn't, because I was there.
Right, and I think I was too. But so that's not true. Anybody that's been up there when it rains, my kids have all told me the school leaks, period.
There's buckets in the hallway, in the classroom.
When it rains, it leaks. And so the idea that's not accurate. The next item is currently Upshur County has the highest tax rate in surrounding counties. Whether that's true or not, honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure that has, while it does have relevance in that we all have to pay county taxes, what we're really focusing on here is the school tax and the school tax rate. And as I just mentioned, Gilmer has one of the lowest school tax rates of any district in our area. And so the fact that the county has a higher rate, I don't think should be a detriment to the school district and the needs of the school district, nor the needs of the students that attend Gilmer ISD. You want to read the next one, Lee?
So the next one is Superintendent Albritton is the second highest paid in area superintendents at $187,000.
And I'm not. I didn't fact check that. I'm assuming that's probably accurate. I don't know who the highest paid superintendent in the district is. I do know that Gilmer is the largest employer in the county. They have about 400 employees, 23 to 2,400 students, and multiply that out. That would leave you with a good number of parents that Superintendent Albritton is responsible for. If you were to make that same comparison in the private sector, I think probably the salary of $187,000 would not seem exorbitant. Maybe it does when you're considering that it's a public entity or and teacher salaries and so forth, and people make those comparisons. Mr. Albritton also has about 36 years of experience. He has 16 years of experience at Gilmer ISD. And I don't think there is another superintendent in the area that has equal attendance, in particular at the same district. And so I think the fact that he's been here for 16 years and the school board has determined that salary is warranted, I suppose, I mean, everybody has opinions about those things. I have an opinion, and so I wouldn't argue mine or yours. And I guess at this point, I'm just making an opinion. Maybe he should be the highest paid superintendent. I mean, I don't know, but that's all. It's relative. And I mentioned earlier, in the 16 years that Mr. Albritton's been here, Gilmer has a superior financial rating as afforded by the TEA.
Well, I'll cover that in the next section, that it will refer back to this. But the last point that was made in this ad is that Gilmer ISD diverted millions from instruction and facilities for athletics. And the source that they are providing is Gilmer ISD Annual Financial Audit, 2017. So, I mean, when we look at that, well, I mean, that's alleging, misconduct. I mean, something illegal.
Because the source of the information is the annual financial audit, so I don't know that night they had the school board, Mr. Albritton may have been arrested because it sounds like he was doing something illegal.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of information there. We don't know what exactly that is addressing, possibly the construction of the new field house. If that's the case, the field house was part of the bond proposition a few years ago. I think there were 3 separate elements to consider in that. All 3 passed. The district ended up spending a portion of the fund balance at the time to construct the new field house. Certainly no money has been diverted from instruction. Gilmer ISD passes a budget annually, and instruction and facility maintenance and even the operating of the athletic department is all addressed in that budget. And so that's just not an accurate statement.
I just like to provide a document here, and I got this from the Gilmer ISD website. So you can go to the Gilmer ISD website. Under the there's a tab. There's 4 boxes on the page, and one is a blue box, and it has bond information. So you can click on that. It takes you to a number of links. And so that's where you can find information about the financial rating of the district, which I'll talk about just a little bit more maybe, and then we'll get to that in a second. But what he said about the proposition, when the elementary bond passed, there were 3 propositions on the ballot. Proposition 1 was for construction of the elementary, and it was Bruce Junior High gym and dressing area. Proposition 2 was for a new Kate Center and existing facility, so that's what we call the ag building. Proposition 3 was for band, choir, hall, athletic facilities, and high school renovation. So Voters approved all three. This is the document, okay? Voters approved all three. And so you can see that Bruce Junior High Gym is listed in Proposition 1. So, was money secretly diverted to athletics? No. Voters saw this on the ballot and they said yes. And they voted yes. Down here in Proposition 3, again, athletic facilities were mentioned. And that was on the ballot and voters approved that as well. So, we have a couple, you said some money came from fund balance, which we've always maintained, typically a pretty healthy fund balance because of wise financial management. And then we have the legal passing of bonds to provide some of these facilities. So, let me say this. When we talk about just alleging that money has been diverted or misused, like he said, we have for 16 years, Gilmer ISD has received a rating of superior achievement each year since the implementation of the financial rating system. Superior achievement is the highest first rating a district can receive. Additionally, Gilmer ISD has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for 14 consecutive years. This report is from 2014, so we're up to 2018 now. So that's excellent. And here we have a school issuer credit rating of A+. Here, long-term rating, AAA. So again, all of this is available on the Gilmer ISD website. Go check it out. There's nothing to hide here. It's, this whole process has been transparent from beginning to end, inviting people to the school to tour it, inviting them to participate on the committee, to determine the needs, to look at renovation versus construction of a new high school. People who were formerly opposed to the bond have been invited to this process and to the table and to really come up with a solution that will help our kids, and so that's really where it stands right now. I have a few closing thoughts, but I know you probably do too. Is there anything else here that we would address?
I don't think so.
Do you think? All I want to say is, nobody really gets excited about paying higher taxes. Nobody wants to pay higher taxes. I think that, anyway, we pay taxes we give money to the state that we don't get to directly control or have a say over or directly benefit from. We pay taxes to the federal government, to Washington, D.C., again, that we don't directly benefit from, that never comes back to our community necessarily. But this money, this school, it will be in our backyard. It will be something that our kids, their kids, our great-grandchildren will pass through the halls, sit in the classroom, sit in the auditorium, play band concerts. It will be open to the community to use it for those ways as well, just like our football stadium and our track have been. This weekend we'll be having Relay for Life at that field. And so the school is the kind of the hub of the community, and this is going to be in our backyard. So it's different, when we're talking about spending tax dollars, I think, in that way. I think the main thing is we need to ask ourselves, you need to ask yourselves, can you afford this? Yes, but I think the bigger question is, can we afford not to do this? Can we afford to push this down the road, pay more at a later date? Can we afford to not equip our kids to go out into college and into jobs with a competitive edge? Because if we can better equip them, they're paying taxes here. They're buying cars here. They're buying homes here in Gilmer, a lot of them. We want them to have earning power out in the workplace, and that starts, an easy place to start is at the school. So those would probably be my final thoughts. Anything else?
Early voting starts tomorrow. Don't miss it. Thank y'all.